Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the ICT Educator webinar series. I'm Steve Wright, and I'm the statewide director of the ICT sector team, which is part of the Workforce and Economic Development Department of the California Community College System. And so these webinars are brought to you by our entire sector team and produced by Nicole Sherman. All of our guest speakers volunteer their time for the sake of our student success. On our website, we now have over 40 recorded webinars by subject matter experts and community college faculty that feature carefully selected how-to techniques and knowledge about the industry. We're very proud of this archive, and each webinar is recorded and then it's been edited, chapterized, transcripted, along with the PowerPoint presentations and other relevant links so that you have a complete package there. And with over 4,000 views on all of our webinars to date, many of our faculty have told us it gives them a sense of community, and they're a great resource for class, a great way to do market research for their students. And in this case today, it's kind of a how-to in case you want to replicate it. Now, in the next few weeks, just really quickly, we're going to be switching to our Cisco Academy type topic next week with the programmable infrastructure with a DevNet associate, and that's a big deal in the IT world. And then we're going to go to a Digital Nest on December 4th, which is another program that involves high school and community colleges. Very, very interesting way they approach things. And then we'll be doing practice labs, which is an alternative to NetLab in terms of giving virtual IT training that your students can do at home. And there's in both practice labs and NetLabs, all these virtual training things, you'll find that there's in some cases they can handle Adobe and some of these other things virtually. All right, well, today's going to be interesting. We have Angela Gomez-Holbrook and Don Bowie speaking to us today from Coastline Community College, which I call the biggest little college in the system because I went there once and I thought it's just a building, you know, but yet they have reached throughout the entire state with their wonderful online programs. And today's topic, digital media, it's a great feeder discipline for our schools. And many students are attracted to digital media. It's like, I say it's like candy. So once they go for it, how do you reel them into the school and then keep them? And I think this dual enrollment approach is it's just a super way to do that. So without any more delay on my part, I think Angela, you wanted to make a few statements first, and then Don Bowie's going to have a presentation. So take it away, Angela.
Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome. I wanted to share a little bit about our department. So my name is Angela Gomez-Holbrook. I am the professor at our digital media program, and our legacy title is Digital Graphic Applications, but all of the community colleges are moving toward digital media applications, and so we'll always have the Digital Graphic Applications title. Our department activity has tripled, and Steve was right. We have a small building, but 90% of our courses are online. So we do a lot of digital online, learning as far as distance learning. And so our program not only includes animation and Adobe programs like Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, we also are moving forward with drone. That area is super exciting, and lots of labor market information that's through the roof there. And audio video streaming, voiceovers. We have excellent faculty that are working with students and engaging students currently. So we also have a new AA degree and 9 and 12 unit certificates, including a production certificate that's geared to high school students. So we've had excellent success with dual enrollment, and I look forward to speaking with Don Bowie, our dual enrollment director, and how we developed our dual enrollment for digital media. We currently have developed to this level after years of working and reaching out to high schools. So here's some of the things that I did work on. So for instance, I would reach out to high schools. I not only made flyers, and I would reach out to schools at our local district high school outreach programs. There was a dedication to promote our program that needed to happen. And also, once our dual enrollment faculty are hired, interviewed and hired, they go through Canvas training. And once they are hired and trained, I get to work with them. And I'm happy to say that the dedication that I have given to those high school teachers, I will check in with them with weekly contact, which is regular and substantive interaction, which is part of our contract, and helping them with student learning outcomes, as well as grading and how to maneuver through Canvas, because there's quite a learning curve, right? So I'm not looking for questions just yet, so we might have a chance for some questions before we move on to Dawn. But we also, a couple of the other things that I think that is really important in order to draw and engage the high school teachers in order to get that buy-in, so that teachers also feel that they have a reason to give this to the students, because students are the most important part of this, the variables, right? So we created, with the help of my dean, Mary Kim, a luncheon for high school teachers in all of our local area, and asked them, what can we do for you? What do your students need? You are our doorway, our pathway. What can we do to help your students? And so there was an interaction, and I think that was very important. That was almost like an open window for us to get this started. So I also do a Halloween and a Valentine's Pathway Day for all of our local high schools. And this time it was on Zoom. So that was a lot of fun. And our faculty dressed up, and we also, face painting and skeletons and lots of fun stuff for students. We had 40 students on Zoom learning about drone imaging, drone racing, drone editing. We also had them engaged talking about new animation software that we're bringing in, Toon Boom. So we have a course starting in 2021 for Storyboard Pro and Toon Boom. We also have our audio production instructor. She is doing streaming, audio, video streaming, and also voiceovers. So lots of new things, and engaging your high school faculty is one of the very first steps. And I feel that's important. That's how I drive this program. So I'd like to hand this over to Don Bowie, and then we'll have a back and forth as he is telling us how the specifics on how the program, our dual enrollment program, was developed. Don?
All righty, thank you.
That was great. I just want to comment on the wisdom of having that luncheon with all those high school faculty. That is a wonderful way to get people together and open up the relationship pathways for this to happen. That's a good idea. We're going to write that one down. Okay, thank you, Angela.
Excellent.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Steve. All righty. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Angela, for that little bit of an introduction to get us started. I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk to you about dual enrollment. This is something that we can go on for hours about. I noticed in the chat as you were introducing yourselves, I noticed there were at least a couple of colleges that I know about who have really outstanding dual enrollment programs yourselves. And so hopefully by the end of this presentation, when we get into the discussion in the Q&A, maybe we can learn something from each other, because that's what this whole process is really about. And so a little bit about myself. I am the dual enrollment project director at Coastline College. I've been here now for almost 2 years. I was previously I was at Golden West College, which is still in the same district, doing assessment and outreach. working a lot with high school students. And before that, I was a high school counselor. And so my entire career in education has always had something to do with the high school partners and high school population. And so I'm really, really happy to have my role now because as Angela mentioned, the collaboration and the interface that we have with our local high school partners, it's really, really key to dual enrollment. And so without further ado, I'd like to share my screen now and just start talking about dual enrollment and the programs that Coastline has. All righty. So I just want to, first of all, get started by talking about just the terminology. As dual enrollment really grows statewide, and California does have some catching up to do because there are other states in the US where high school students are already able to graduate with an AA degree and it's normal. You know, for us, we're not quite there yet, but like I said, it is really, really growing in our state. And so we hear a lot about dual enrollment, or concurrent enrollment. So what's the difference? And so dual enrollment is, nationally used pretty broadly. And it's basically just to describe college coursework that a high school student is participating in. However, in current practice, the use of a dual enrollment program versus a concurrent enrollment program, it's really a local decision. So as I'll be doing pretty regularly throughout this presentation, I'll be using the Coastline example just to shed some light on some of these topics. And so in our district, at the Coast Community College District, dual enrollment refers to not only courses, but also the supports that are specifically for high school students within the partnership agreement that is board ratified. So this is a very involved process where we're working with the partner school district. And this agreement has a term limit, it has certifications, it has Title V language that we need to comply with. It's got information about funding, how we share technology, how we share facilities and data. And so that is how we classify a dual enrollment program. We also have concurrent enrollment, which is a much more broad term that describes just courses that are taken generally by high school students. And so, for example, this is just your high school student who is the minority in a class full of college-age students. And it's not specifically for that high school. It's not necessarily part of a pathway. It's just students who have an interest in the class and they want to take this class at the college campus or online. So for us, a dual enrollment partnership is it's governed by AB 30, which is the College and Career Access Pathways Partnerships Law. And there are major benefits that AB 30 and the CCAP agreement will allow compared to a dual enrollment without CCAP. And so these are just, again, a high level overview of what the differences are. We've already talked about the agreement in terms of what you need for a board ratified dual enrollment agreement. It's district to district. It certifies dual enrollment program with AB 30 provisions and benefits that are triggered. You can do dual enrollment without a CCAP, and it could be as simple as a simple MOU that just covers basics such as insurance, liabilities, information sharing, the classes that you offer, things like that. It does not need to be board ratified like a CCAP dual enrollment agreement needs to be. A major benefit of having the College and Career Access Pathways partnerships is that it's zero cost completely to the student. There's no textbook fees, the health fee is waived, all of the tuition, of course, is also waived. And so it's completely zero cost experience to the student. Without the CCAP, the tuition would be waived, but students would still be responsible for, like, for example, the enrollment fees or any instructional or lab materials that they'd have to, get to be successful in the class. In terms of course scheduling, this is also another really big benefit to having a CCAP agreement, because you can have your college classes built into the high school campus and the high school regular day. And so there's easy access there, right? We're not asking students to, get themselves over to a college campus. It's right there and it's during their regular day. And so, period one, they might have an English class, period two, they're, walking down the hallway and they're going to, their Photoshop class that Coastline provides. And so again, it's a really big benefit to having a CCAP agreement. And because it's on the high school campus, it's open to high school students only. Whereas without a CCAP, you could still have courses on the high school campus, but it would have to be after school or outside of the regular day where the general public is allowed to be on that campus. And every high school is going to have something slightly different. And that class, because it's not only open to the high school students, if you have a college age student who this is the one class they need and the other options at your college campus doesn't work for them, they might choose to show up to take this class at the high school campus. And that's they just have to be okay with it because it's their right to do so. There are other benefits as well. And so you can give high school students priority registration to your classes, which really helps with recruitment. Without a CCAP, they can only take classes up to 11 units because they can't be full-time as a high school student. But with a CCAP agreement, that could bump all the way up to as many as 15 units per semester. And so you could really increase the participation level that they have, and you could really build pathways, with the plan that students can take up to as many as 4 classes of 15 units per semester. You can also reduce the paperwork. This really refers to the volumes of forms and permission slips that high school students have to go through in order to take college classes. And they can also have access to specific services dedicated primarily for high school students. So again, you can, a lot of colleges do it without the CCAP and with the CCAP, or just one or the other. And at Coastline, we have a wide variety of all of these. So here's a look at all the partnerships we have just to highlight what I was just talking about. So at Coastline, we have an early college high school partnership. So this is where we serve about 210 students annually for an ECHS in Costa Mesa, California. It's in our feeder area. And we have students in grades 9 through 12 taking classes towards the completion of the I-Get-C. And this is where our college faculty will come onto the ECHS campus, and they'll be teaching these classes during the bell schedule. So it's built in. And a really major achievement of this partnership is that we have students who are averaging 21 completed college units by the time they graduate high school. And we actually have some students who every year will be graduating with about 40 to 50 college units from Coastline. And so what this means is that they're able to not only have explored their interests early and really get a clear determination of what career path they want to pursue or what academic program they want to complete. And because they have completed so many college credits already, they're considered to be a highly competitive applicant. And they are graduating high school and they're able to go to a university of their choice with a very attractive financial aid package. And it's great for Coastline because we know how much involvement we had in their educational journey. It's a really, really heartwarming, really, really important thing for us. Another partnership we have is the Garden Grove Unified School District CCAP. GGUSD is another feeder school district in our area. We have about 250 students annually, and they're mostly taking CTE classes. And so they're in business, cybersecurity, digital graphics classes. The difference between this partnership and the ECHS partnership is we try to hire high school teachers who meet minimum qualifications to hire them as our part-time faculty so that they can teach during the high school bell schedule. And so this is very, very interesting, and it gets a little bit complex, but there's major benefits to it because this high school teacher could be at the same time teaching the high school component of this class for maybe part of the week, like Tuesday and Thursday, and for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they could be teaching the college component of that class. We'll get into the logistics of how that setup works, but in general, this is why we really want to be able to hire qualified high school teachers and bring them on as adjuncts because it just makes things very seamless, very smooth. Not to mention, we can't underestimate the rapport and the relationship that teacher already has with his or her students. And that is really what helps bring the buy-in and the attendance as well for students to pick these dual enrollment classes. The other kind of partnerships we have would be non-CCAP, and we have about 120 students annually in I-Get-C and cybersecurity classes. And this is where it's mostly our faculty, again, teaching on their high school campus, but it's outside of the bell schedule. And so we try to do it all. And the reason why we have these this level of variety of partnerships is because we really want to meet students and our school partners where they are. Not every school district, you'll see if you're starting to get involved in dual enrollment, you see that not every school district is necessarily ready to jump in right away into, like an at-scale dual enrollment program. You might see that some school districts are really, excited about it, and they have the infrastructure in place already, and also the buy-in from their leadership to be able to do something like that. But then there are other cases where we might need to just start slowly to allow a school district to just kind of, dip their toes in the water. And maybe the goal there is to develop something as a pilot to be able to show the data, to be able to show the preliminary success rates, so that we can build the case to advocate for, a scaled program. And so that's why we have all these different kinds. Some of these are 10 to 12 years old, and some of these are only 3 to 4 years old. And so we have a wide variety, because again, it's really about trying to meet the students and try to meet our partners where they are. It's a heavy collaboration. Alrighty, moving on now. Here is a sample schedule for our students at early college high school. Now remember, at ECHS, we have about 210 students every year, and they're taking classes primarily to complete the I-Get-C. We don't require them to take any college classes actually, but they choose to apply to this high school because they want to take advantage of this opportunity. And so we try to make it as simple as possible for them by laying out the classes that we recommend by semester and also by year. And so as you can see there, we have classes that are laid out to meet all of the different I-Get-C areas, 1 through 6, in each of the different grades. And the key part here that I want to communicate is that we want to let the students know that the option is there if they want to take all of these. However, we don't push them to do all of it because, of course, it's quality over quantity. We really want a student who's going to be able to either buy in and say, I'm going to try to take as many of these classes as possible, because I understand that at the end of it, I'm saving time, I'm saving money, and I'm really going to be able to make the most use possible out of my time here at ECHS. So again, we want the motivation to be there for the students to take these college classes. Or we want the student to have a genuine interest in these classes, because you could really use this opportunity to explore if what you think you might want to do in the future is really what it is that you are interested in. A lot of students say they want to be a nurse, they want to be a lawyer, they want to be a doctor, and they might very well end up pursuing that all the way through, but at the same time, they might be saying that when they're 13, 14 years old in grade 9. And so, how do you handle organic chemistry, right? How do you handle cognitive science? How do you handle, brain chemicals, and studying about those things as an academic subject, taking tests on them, writing research papers on them, right? And so how do you handle that when you actually get to the academic component of it? And they might realize, what, I'm actually better at something else instead. And this is really a good opportunity for me to, this was a really good opportunity for me to see that, I thought that I really wanted this, but I might not. Or it completely affirms exactly what it is I want to do. And so the opportunity is really there for them. And again, but we really want them to be able to say that I have a genuine interest in this, or that I'm willing to do the work to be successful in these classes. So again, this is for one partnership at early college high school. I will now show you our dual enrollment pathways at another partnership with Garden Grove Unified. And we started a GGUSD partnership with just cybersecurity, but last year we also added on DGA. And I'm very happy to say that this year is the first time we're able to launch the year 2 courses for cybersecurity. And so we started out with 2 years of the year 1 class. And so we had students take the CST 128, which is a networking plus class, in the fall. And in the spring, they move on to CST 230, which is intro to security. And now this year we have enough students who have completed the year 1 course to move on to year 2. And so in the fall semester this year, they're taking CST 191, which is our Linux class, and then CST 232B in the spring, which is our ethical hacking class. Very, very exciting stuff. This will make up 12 of the required 21 units for our certificate of achievement in cybersecurity. And so after this, if they're still in high school, they could take on more classes as a concurrent enrollment student with Coastline, or if they're going to be graduating, well, we hope that they only need a few more classes to complete the certificate, and then move on to the AA if they'd like to at Coastline. In digital graphics and animation, these are the classes that we could recommend for our students at GGUSD. We have Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, and then a new one, which is Digital Media Design Principles. Now, these classes are offered either within the Bell schedule during their day, or they can take it outside of that by taking it online, because all these classes are offered also online asynchronously through Professor Gomez Holbrook's department. Alrighty, so we've talked a lot already about the benefits of dual enrollment, the classes that we've just seen that we offer. How do we set it up? This is where it gets very detail intensive, but this is again where the collaboration with the partners really shines through. And so we have a joint planning committee at Coastline comprised of people from Coastline and also the administrators and counselors from our partner high schools. And so this joint planning committee will get together every semester or so to talk about things such as matching the course roadmap to student and local workforce needs. Again, meeting the student where they are, right? What are the needs that we're addressing? What are the gaps we're able to fill? What are some classes that high schools really want, but they just haven't been able to offer? And how are we able to come in and support that? It's also to help recruit qualified high school faculty to teach dual enrollment. Like I said, this is a really big deal for us. We've hired 5 high school faculty members to teach our college classes. And again, this is really just about the rapport that they have with the students already, and it helps with recruitment of the students as well. We also really need to schedule courses so that we can embed them into the high school regular day while meeting our required contact hours. As I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that we can set it up is we have a high school class matched with a college class, and in the same week, they're going to be teaching both of those classes at the same time. So again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday could be the college class, Tuesday, Thursday could be the high school class, and they're all together. It's seamless. We also need to plan programming of the faculty support from Coastline. And so as Angela mentioned earlier, it's Canvas training, right? Which might not be intuitive to a high school teacher who's now going to be teaching college courses. It's student learning outcomes, it's evaluations. And we also need to, this is a really big one, we need to plan how do we implement an outreach to completion support cycle for students, because we can't just promise the students that these classes are what you're going to be taking, what you'll be learning, and then bring them to the college and then say, okay, there you go, right? Now you're on your own. We can't do that. We have to be able to support them the entire way through. Otherwise, it's just a lost promise. And so that last part there, having that consideration of a support cycle from outreaching to the student to having them complete, it's really critical. Some additional set of considerations and some things that we've had to really successfully complete. It's funding, right? So one of the questions that high school students and college staff and personnel have as well is, how do you still claim the FTES? Yes, and how you set it up is that we ensure that the high school is still able to claim their full average daily attendance funding. And then Coastline is going to claim the full FTS apportionment. And how that works is basically, for most high schools, the maximum possible ADA they can collect is 240 minutes or 4 hours. And so you just say that if you're going to be a high school student taking this class on your campus during your day, you have to have at least 4 high school classes, because that way, the school gets the full ADA. And then your 5th or 6th class could be a college class. And, it's separate from the ADA, meaning Coastline. We can get the FTS apportionment, no problem. And also only one school can pay for the instructional assignment. This is how we prevent double dipping. And so if you're a teacher who works at a high school normally and you're teaching one dual enrollment class, we have to decide, is Coastline going to be paying for that assignment, or is the high school district? Because again, we can't double dip. So there's an example right there. A class during the high school day is taught by a full-time high school teacher that we've hired as adjunct. The high school would pay the normal rate to the teacher because their full-time rate is higher than our part-time rate. And then we just use the money saved towards instructional materials, faculty trainings. So for example, last year, we were able to spend about almost $20,000 on textbooks and licenses for students to use in the dual enrollment classes. Even if we're not paying the instructor as a college, we can still retain the full jurisdiction over the instructional direction and activities of the class. And this is in Title V. Alrighty, so just a look at the demographics and the students served. Now, I do want to say that this is from last year, and it's 504 total students in our partnership programs. The total number of high school students we served, meaning students who are also taking classes that are not part of a partnership program, meaning it's a concurrent enrollment student. If you factor all that in, last year we actually served just a little bit over 1,000 students. That was our unduplicated headcount, and totaling nearly 1,900 enrollments. But in terms of the partnership programs we had, last year we served 504 total students. We are both an HSI and an ANAPESI. And so as you can see there, the number of Hispanic, Latinx students and Asian and Pacific Islander students that we served made up a large chunk of the students who were able to access these classes. And this is due to the local area that we're in. We're close to Garden Grove, Santa Ana, Westminster, where we have a lot of students with high potential who are still underrepresented in higher education. And so we really work well with our high school partners to identify not only the students, but also the classes and the pathways that might fit them best, so that we can get them to access higher education at a higher rate. In terms of female and male, we had 266 female students last year compared to 265. And so it's very, very evenly split. And so as we look at this, again, I want to say that we served about 1,000 high school students last year. And so in order to serve this capacity of high school students, we have to talk about staffing, right? We have to talk about the support at the high school campus and also the college campus to be able to deliver these programs and services to the students. And so I just want to say that this is not going to be possible without high level of interface and collaboration with the student service teams at your colleges and also at the high schools. And so, for example, at Coastline, here's all the people and departments who are involved in dual enrollment. We have student service teams such as the admissions and records team, who really have a lot to do with the onboarding and the early going of a dual enrollment student, the kind of forms and the applications that students are able to submit, how timely we're able to get that information to them, how they matriculate and enroll and understand the differences between adding, dropping, withdrawing. These days, we also have the excused withdrawal due to everything that's going on. And so that information is really important for students to know, and they need to hear that from the experts in the area. We also expose the students to our outreach specialists, who will give them a rundown of what college is like, and especially what it means to go to community college when you're still in high school. Our counseling team is also involved. In fact, at Early College High School, we've had a part-time counselor in-house. We've had a part-time counselor on the high school campus for anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a week because of that level of relationship that we have. I'm the project director, and so I oversee all these operations. I also work very closely with our faculty teams, so teachers like Angela, and also with our deans of instruction. And then at the high schools, we really need to get the buy-in as well from the counselors. So CT counselor, high school counselor generally, the CT director, and any of the coordinating staff that they have, as well as the high school admin teams. This is how we form that joint planning committee to be able to go over all of those operational logistics that are required in setting up dual enrollment. And so with all of this collaboration, what are the outputs, right? What is the productivity that we have? Well, with all of this shared work that we have, we're able to do application workshops. We're able to have onboarding presentations. We're able to provide counseling for students at Coastline, or much more often these days, it's going to be on Zoom. And then we also have students who are going to be incorporated into our college campus activities. So an example of this that we're really excited about is that since the spring of 2020, we developed an esports program at Coastline. And in the summer, we had competitions, and we saw our high school students get really involved, and they were actually able to win some competitions for Coastline esports. And then now they've come back since the summer to re-up for our Coastline esports club in the fall and again for the spring. And so all of these things here are just really incredible ways that we can leverage the participation level from our high school partners and from the students, because in addition to the classes and the academic experience that the students can access, they can also get a chance to experience student life as a college student as well. Now, all of these things here, it's not just to serve the students, of course, but it's also to respond to growth. As I've mentioned a couple of times throughout this presentation, dual enrollment is a really hot topic in California these days. I hear from other colleges all the time who are talking about dual enrollment, scaling the dual enrollment program, starting new dual enrollment partnerships. And we also have high schools who are looking to become more marketable and more competitive in their local area. And one of the ways that they can do that in terms of recruiting students is to bring on dual enrollment programs. And so the growth is there. And so how do we respond to that growth, right? How do we prioritize the infrastructure so that we can really support these students? Because again, college, I don't think college is necessarily hard, but it might not be intuitive to a student, especially if they're really, really young, right? And so the infrastructure in terms of getting them the information and helping them succeed is really, really critical. And so to respond to this growth, right, the infrastructure should have, that's the staff that's dedicated to supporting the entire life cycle of the dual enrollment student. So again, that's outreaching, onboarding the student, matriculation into the class, and then retention and persistence. These are really, really critical things that we have to program into our partnerships. We also need to have the resources. And these days, especially during the pandemic, I think a lot of campuses are able to provide Chromebooks to students, and this is Coastline as well. And Chromebooks usually work well because it's simple, they're affordable to purchase in bulk for loaner programs to students, and for the most part they work well, right, in the college classes. But what about students who are taking classes that need software like Adobe? Right? If you're going to be in a digital media program, you're going to need Adobe Creative Cloud, and you can't run that on a Chromebook. And so how do we also write into our grants, write into our funding proposals, come up with the money to provide non-Chromebook devices and also the software licenses that are necessary for students to access and succeed in certain classes? We also need to program professional development for faculty teaching high school students and maintaining the college rigor. This is really critical because this is how we can show the data of students succeeding and make a compelling case to the leadership teams at not only the high school districts, but also in our college districts, to say that the students were able to succeed, and we know that they were able to meet the rigor of these college classes. And lastly, we also got to program in outreaching to underrepresented students in higher education. One of the ways that Coastline has done this is just to basically let the high school students take the lead on this, with us as support, because they have access, they have the data, and they know their local community the best. They know their families, they know their parents, and know the students. And so with that, we support them in terms of helping them identify who they want to target for these programs. And the output could be a number of ways. We could present into, at club meetings, right? We could gather students together during lunchtime. We can have an information night. We can invite them to our campus for a pathway day, or these days a virtual pathway day, like Angela mentions, just to show them that not only is college doable, but they should be able to imagine themselves in college. They should be able to visualize themselves in college. And it's really helpful when, as a college, we're able to show them people who look like them, who might have gone through the same experiences, who might have faced the same questions, and to show that, hey, here's their experience, and next year or a couple of years down the line, when it's your turn to go to college, you could be right here as well. And one of the ways in which we can prepare you for that later on is if you're taking dual enrollment early. So with that, I think that's my presentation. I think we're going to move on now to the Q&A portion, of this presentation with the time we have left. And again, I just want to say thank you for having me.
Well, golly, Don and Angela, every now and then, I do these once a week, but sometimes it just hits me. It's almost like goosebumps, like when someone's done something so professionally and so well, and so many of those points you brought out. I mean, I could barely think of the question before you were answering it. It's just terrific. I love the outreach to the underserved and how you did that. So I'll lead with a question, but please look at the chat because we're going to be asking people to put some questions there as well. how did, I like the idea where you did the outreach through the students in the high schools to others that might want to come in. And could you explain a little bit more about how that, or maybe give an anecdote or something of how that has worked in the past? Because that to me is, how do you reach out to these people? I think if we look statewide, we say, how do you reach out to people that need help? And it's kind of a vague uh, thing. How do you do it?
Well, so we have a multiple prong approach at Coastline, but the one that I know the most about is the one that I'll be sharing here, and it's having good partnerships at the local school districts, right? And so going to your feeder school districts and presenting them with data, right, and saying, so here's what we know in terms of where your students are going, right? And this might be something that you need to start first with um, doing kind of a research request with the high school district's information service department to see, so your students who are graduating from your district, how many of them go to us or go to a local community college. And then from there, we can say, of the students who are at Coastline, here's how they did. And let's talk about how we might be able to articulate courses, align curriculum. Let's have our faculty meet with your faculty to work on this curriculum alignment so that when they are done with English and math at your campuses and they go to Coastline, it will be a more seamless transition. So there's a lot of that, again, interfacing that you can really do. But I would say start first with those who you have already some kind of relationship with or where a relationship makes sense. And so that way you can have that access into that school district and you're able to then, start kind of a bridging of efforts, a pathway of these different opportunities where you're able to get in front of the families, get in front of the students and also the faculty to talk about the programs that you offer. And it's really important in these meetings and these conversations for the dialogue to not be dominated by what it is that we, the college, can do, because I think a lot of times that happens. It's just kind of natural that way, right? But we shouldn't come in with only this idea that here's all the things that we can do. Send students to us. It's really, so what are some things that you need? What are some gaps that you need to be filled? And might there be a match that Coastline has that makes sense for that? And so I think that the lubrication for these wheels to turn is really just the relationship. And that's where I would start.
I agree, and you guys have done that very well. And I think the other question would be, how do you fund yourselves to do all that? You answered some of that already, but still, to my first question, I'm very often, you think that when you have these opportunities like this, it's the students in the high school whose parents are most aggressive about their learning or have a very high motivated opinion of themselves and want to just push and push and push. How do you reach the students who are more questioning whether they could actually do it? And making sure they get brought in.
So that's a fantastic question, right? And so that level of self-doubt, right, is something that we see a lot. And again, like I said, before I got into higher ed, I was a high school counselor. And so I try to tap into that experience whenever I can. And so I think the really main thing there is you first have to identify who those students are, right? And if you know that there's a program you're trying to grow, you have to start first by where are you going to be serving this? And so by working with the local schools, and also I haven't mentioned this yet, but one thing that Coastline has done as well is to reach out to the local organizations. So like, for example, community groups and places like that, where we have these conversations with them. And we say that this is what we're able to offer. Does it line up with whatever it is the needs are? And oftentimes we're going to find that the schools and these programs in the community will know who the students are that need to be reached. And so it's then, we're collaborating with them and we're asking them to bring us along. And so I think it's really important for the people who are really good at what they do to lead that specific part. And so in my experience, I found that these, local community organizations and the local school districts, they do a really good job of identifying who those, at need students are, and also at potential students, right? And so once we are able to identify who those students are, it's then having a conversation with the leaders of that team in terms of, so how do we best deliver this information to them? And in terms of the delivery, it's really important for us to have as many ways as possible. So it could be social media posts. It could be, passive things like flyers, right? It could be email blasts, even though that doesn't really work too well for high school students, but it's something you can do in support of like bigger, more hands-on approaches.
Don.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to chime in when you get a chance.
Sure. Yeah. And so just to wrap up my last point there, it's also having presentations in the community. So Coastline does parent nights throughout the year. We meet with students and families in our local areas. We get this information to them in as many ways as possible. So if they can show up, great. If not, here is a website. Here are some flyers. Here's some brochures that you can look at with some contact and a call to action, so that when you're ready to know more, you can reach us. Angela?
That's great. You've done so many wonderful things. Angela, your comments.
I just wanted to add that, there's funding for your faculty to rally and to go to the outreach events, create some parent nights and other creative methods to reach out to teachers, parents, and students. So because of our background in digital media, I would create my own flyers, on the fly, just real quick flyers that identified to parents, specifically geared to parents, saying, did you know that these courses are tuition free for 9th through 12th grade? And that information, that awareness was still not universal. Lots of parents are like, you're kidding. I didn't know that it was tuition free. So they can get 3 units of college credit for every course they take at the college. So I went to every outreach event. I would get the part-time faculty to come with me. We would showcase some of the stuff, some 3D work that we did, prints and video of all of the work that the students are doing. So then just reaching out to them, making sure that there's an awareness of the tuition-free factor and the college credits that students can be getting, because some schools are reaching the students that are interested, but there are a lot of parents that are not familiar, the lower income, what did you call the group of students that are not, sometimes they're
underrepresented or at potential students.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then there are parents that are a little bit afraid. So there's another factor. What I wanted to do was to be the face of our program. And so I would go to every single outreach we had. I would even go to the campus and talk to the parents. And I would explain what our campus looked like, and if it was an online class, what they would be doing, but our campus itself for our audio production or for digital photography. As I would be the instructor, I told them that it's a 3-story building and that there's security. And once they go in, they don't go out until the parents pick them up. But so there's safety and security. There's a lot of factors that parents are interested in order to allow their students to go to an evening course. So some of these things you have to reach out, you have to find out what is limiting parents from supporting or ushering their students in to take these tuition-free programs.
I think that's a great point. A lot of people just don't know what's there and what's available. Nicole tells me we have Tom Lubell who has a question. Tom, are you ready to ask?
I just wanted to, can you hear me, Don? And
yes.
Well, thank you very much. This is excellent, so helpful, and you've saved us a lot of time and steps. So really appreciate all the valuable nuggets you're giving out today. I did have one question. Did you have to crosswalk your district student information systems with that of the district, other districts, or did you not do that step at all? Was there any bridging you had to do, or did you both just maintain separate student information systems?
That's a great question, Tom. Thank you. So we moving forward, we will be doing that crosswalk of the student information system, but thus far we have not had to. However, as you scale, you're going to find that the more classes you have, and we have classes at 8 different campuses. Some years it's like 9 or 10. So right now we have classes at 8 different campuses and at 3 different districts. You're going to find that in terms of being able to offer more classes, you're going to see it's going to work much better when you do have that crosswalk. But thus far, this is year 3 of our partnership with Garden Grove Unified, and we haven't needed to do that yet. But it is one of the things that we're trying to get done by next year, because this way, you're able to see, and it really helps the high school district when they do their CCI information, because they have like indices that they have to now report in terms of the college readiness data, and so this makes it easier for them to be able to say, all right, we just know from our own in-house system, here are the students that are in our high school district, they complete these college classes, and this is how we put them into the metrics. Otherwise, what we've been doing is basically we do have an information sharing clause into our MOU or our contract with the high school districts, and so every semester what we'll do is we'll be just sending them data in terms of the students who are in the classes and then the success rates after the semester is over.
All right, thank you very much. Very helpful. Appreciate that.
We had another question in the chat. Want to know how many high schools you're dealing with?
So 8 high schools currently, sometimes as many as 9 or 10.
Do you feel you have an obligation to deal with every high school around you, or is it kind of a whoever shows up and wants to work with us kind of approach?
Oh, that's a very interesting question, Steve. And so in terms of an obligation, yes. I mean, we feel that we have a duty to serve all of the students in our feeder area, right? So that's how I would start the answer to that question. Now, in practice, though, you're going to see that high school districts might already come to the table with a very clear understanding of who they want to send where, and that could be a very, very good thing. Because, for example, one of our main districts that we work with, Garden Grove Unified, they don't only partner with Coastline, they also partner with 2 other local districts, because just geographically they feed into all these different districts. And so, yes, I would say we want to be able to reach as many of these students as possible. And in practice, you're going to see that may end up being what you do, depending on where you are, or you might come into a conversation with the high school district that says, you serve this area more in our district boundaries, and that other district serves another one. And so, that's why we have certain, students take these classes compared to these classes. And so the full answer is probably more complex than that. But I would say, generally speaking, is just about meeting the students where they are, and finding the best possible way to be able to reach those students.
One more question just popped up, and that is if you approached a college, or excuse me, a high school that had never done this before, how would you approach?
Yeah, so when I came into Coastline, our dual enrollment partnerships were already started, but I have brought on a couple of new ones. But at my previous institution, I was one of the planning committee members when we started to scale or to launch that. And so I would say for you to work with any new high school districts that might not really know a whole lot about dual enrollment, or they might actually have some apprehension about it because they're concerned, okay, well, what is our faculty, it's not called Senate at the high schools, what is our faculty union going to say, right, about potentially taking assignments away from high school teachers and all that stuff? That is something that you have to consider, right? And so when you're starting these conversations with a brand new partner who doesn't really know a whole lot about dual enrollment, I would say the best thing to do is to provide narrative and stories. Like, that's really, really important. We can talk about data all the live long day, but the thing that really, really connects us to something is the story of how something works. And so bring a student who came from that high school and is now at college, and let that student say very, very frankly what they wish they had in high school, so that we can have a very, very transparent conversation in terms of here is how we are able to serve more students right now, and not have to wait until they get to college. And so I think that narrative is really important at first, and then of course you get into the data to back it up and to show the programs that you're able to offer.
And it occurred to me as you were telling them the story, that's the perfect ending loop for this entire presentation, because it's digital media about storytelling, and the very tool that you train people in is how you get things done. Angela, any final comments?
I just want to say that we end our program, our courses with internship opportunities and job shadowing because of our virtual current world, right? Everything's virtual. So we find industry professionals and we review their workflow, their ideas, their mistakes, their successes as job shadowing, so that the students are benefiting in that way as well.
Well, that's terrific. So many wonderful things here, and you know, I couldn't help but thinking as I was listening to you talk that not only is this very smartly done, but the amount of diplomacy and patience and persistence probably necessary to make it happen. Those are the traits that seem to kind of speak from everything that you've done. But I want to thank you both very much for presenting today. That's pretty much all the time we have, so we're going to wrap it up. And thank you very much. I hope to see everybody next week in our next ICT Educator Series. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.